What's up, guys? So I'm still sick from Vegas. I had a really good time, and there's a few things I wanted to go over in this video, probably a little bit on the shorter side, but when your car is finished and tuned, if something pops up like an engine protection, it's driving differently, anything that is different than when we tuned, I need you to contact me, because that is a mechanical change. Okay, that's most likely a fuel filter getting clogged, spark plugs getting fouled, something like that. We need to look over the vehicle because the tune won't change. I'm not using any long-term fuel trim stuff because on most ECUs they'll be fighting the short term and not applying fully. So I'm very particular about that, and I do it this way, so if you do sense any change and you do see any change, we need to address it the proper way, which means that a mechanical fault has happened. Okay? A tune will never change, from me at least, from the day that you got it to now. Now, it might need adapted for weather. That's something that's always a factor, but it's never going to be something that's changing. So I just that first and foremost, because I'll get messages like, my car is doing this, my car is doing this, I don't know what I'm doing. And then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, I changed a fuel pump, a filter, a this. And I'm like, yeah, you have 20 PSI fuel pressure. That's not what you were tuned at. So you probably have the fuel pump too low in the tank, and the sock is starving at the bottom of the tank and needs to be lifted up to have a proper gap. Or the line that was now added into the fuel tank is kinked or has a rip in it or something similar, very similar to that. The other thing is, I've kind of gone over how to set ignition timing. That's something I do first and foremost. It's like right after the first start of a car, if I don't do it before starting the car. Very simple, as we set enough airflow in the engine to be stable, we add extra fuel, I lock the ignition timing, and then based on which crank trigger wheel we have, we're going to have our timing is going to be either leading or trailing depending on which crank trigger, and then it's going to be a certain mark on the trigger wheel. Now we're going to trust the trigger wheel, we're going to trust the crank angle sensor, we're going to trust certain things, because if we don't, then we have nothing to reference if we have problems, and we need to create some assumptions in the system to where we can make an accurate selective choice for that system. Let's see, I'm looking at my list above the computer. So I've got spark plug reading, that's for everyone, right? I've gone over this on a bunch of the Facebook RX-7 pages. I have documentation as far as how to do it. But ideally, what I want you guys to do is, after tuning, you're going to send me your spark plugs every, let's say, 1,000 miles or so. And what I'll do is I'll start to adapt, and I'll say like, okay, because of this, we're going to change to this spark plug. Or because of this, I'm going to adapt your fuel tuning to this. Or, hey, we've got a little bit too much ignition timing or not enough ignition timing. I will be able to adapt your car based on your spark plugs. And as much as I can fine tune during the tuning process, there's always more on the table. And by reading plugs, I make a better decision for what's long-term best for the engine. Because I can do so much, but there's still, at the end of the day, the spark plug tells the story. Okay? That is the way to go. That always has to be the way. Let's see. So what I put in my notes is the hardest thing to explain is my car runs bad after blank, blank, blank after tuning. And again, that's going back down to as simple as something mechanical has failed and we need to revise what is happening. We're going to trust our sensors, whether it's fuel pressure, oil pressure, you know, if the turbo starts to seize and smoke because you've got too much pressure going to the turbo without an OPR 40, and the turbo starts to seize and leak out the seals, and then cause all sorts of problems because now it's stalling the engine because it doesn't want to free spin. Very common. You guys have no idea. When we have oil pressures at 120 psi and a turbo is asking for 60 psi and below, that's a problem. And especially in the EFR boys, which, as much as those are internally regulated, it doesn't matter because you're still not receiving the right amount of pressure. You cannot rebuild an EFR turbo. So that great piece of technology, again, this is why I'm a Garrett boy. I'm so sorry. I love my Borg Warner guys. I love the amount of work they put in, and I love what they're doing with what they have. But you can't rebuild an EFR. You can rebuild an SXE, you can rebuild SXR, you can rebuild all the Garrett stuff, all the Zoner rotor and precision, but you cannot build an EFR. So it's something to note when you're going to purchase a turbo. The lifespan of that turbo, if ill kept, lots of two-step, too much oil pressure, the lifespan of that thing, it's a one-time shot. That's all you get. So please be very cautious of mechanical stuff. We're talking a smoke tester is your best friend and an amazing tool. Always keep one handy. You can smoke test from the exhaust upward to find exhaust leaks. You can smoke test multiple spots on the intake manifold, on the charge piping, everything you can imagine. You're going to hate the smell of baby oil, but damn does it work, right? You're going to find problems, you're going to fix problems. It makes my tuning accurate because of that. Now, if you gain a big air leak all of a sudden and the tune's way the fuck off, I can't do anything about that, right? Again, it's a mechanical thing. I try to set up as many parameters as possible to protect and adapt the engine when needed. I leave an extra short-term fuel trim on these tunes to compensate for when something does fail. It's going to say, oh, holy shit, brah, throw some fuel in it, and it'll maintain that as needed to keep things alive. It's also going to trigger a protection. So you should say, hey, what the fuck, my car's limited at 3,500 RPM for this. What happened? Call me. Simple as that. But the other point of this video was I'm incredibly impressed with you guys. And I never would have thought this, but it's almost like tuning has become a status symbol to where when you're like, I'm tuned by so-and-so, that's like you have more credibility or something in those lines. It's really impressive. And I will not name names, but if you go on any of these big RX-7 pages and you see posts of my clients, they're usually the guys giving really good feedback, really good understanding of problems that others are facing, and they're out there outreaching to help others. You guys have paid it forward, and that's exactly what I've tried to instill. I'm so proud. So thank you for all of you doing that. It is really cool the fact that it's becoming like a status symbol of so-and-so tuned my car, blah, blah, blah. And I guess the last thing I wanted to bring up, it's a little more on the sad side, is you can only help those who want to be helped, right? To the effect of, I'm not going to say they badmouthed me, but someone earlier this week took the time and they're like, I had problems with Ryan for this. And they brought up very good points. They're correct in their feelings, but they're misunderstanding the fact that I put in countless hours for diagnosing of phone call, live, emails, and messengers. And we're talking like hundreds of screenshots worth. This is not like a fly-by-night quickie problem. This is like the car had an electrical miswire, and the harness was purchased from someone who I trusted with harness stuff, and I still do. It's a very simple mistake. It was a 8-pin connector, and the 2 ends of the connector were switched. So a small fault that caused a lot of headache, and many a time I had asked for pictures of either side of connector, and it's kind of like a one thing you would expect to be an easy answer or easy response from someone, and then they would just get frustrated and go on their way. I would say, you go left, they go right, and it was very much me walking away from a job. And I created, oh geez, I don't want to call it what it is. I created a blank factor because of this guy. And that's what created the online presence that you guys have seen in the last, let's say, year and a half. Because this was quite a while ago. That guy ended up going to 4 other tuners as I turned it down. But, you know, it's a very interesting thing to say, this much time wasted created an online presence, and where I need to shit test people to make sure that I can work with them and be in unison, for we're on the same path, the same goals to attain an amazing renting car for you. When someone is working against me, and instead of trying to help in their own diagnostic of their car, they're almost doing the opposite. They're making it more difficult for me. Messages all throughout the night, 2 in the morning on a Saturday, like just complete unprofessionalism. And it made me so frustrated that I decided to be an asshole online. That benefited me, and it still has been benefiting me for quite a while, because I work with amazing people. I'm able to pull out who I want to work with and not have any BS. Like, we're always really good with communication. And it's fun to start with this persona of a person and expect this guy's going to be a dick. This guy's going to be whatever online presence has shown him to be. And then when we have our first phone conversation, they're like, holy shit, this dude's passionate and he actually does know his stuff. That is a different perspective, right? And what I'm starting to do now is tone back a little bit on the online persona, which was like a qualification and a barrier, if you will, for dealing with shitty people. So it's part of it. I think when you own a business and you're trying to work with certain people, you need to find a way to say no. So this year, I think I've turned down, I want to say like 15 different people. So not a huge number, but something that's a reasonable number to say, like, I don't need your work. You should go to someone else because of this. And as long as you hold yourself to your standards and your accountability is good to those that you take care of, it's no harm, no foul. And I think that's a very important thing that some need to realize is, I don't need to work with you, but, you know, if we can come to a common ground, I'm here to help, right? I make all these videos on here to try to help. And if there are certain things you guys want me to try to cover in the future, I try to write them down on this whiteboard behind me, or behind you, behind the computer screen. And I'm really doing my best to just make sure that we don't lose generational knowledge of this sort of stuff. And I've had to fight tooth and nail to get where I'm at and to learn what I've learned. And it's cost me an extreme amount of money. That's why I have my opinions, because I've spent the money and I've learned who's fucking real and who's not. So There's a video coming out later today or tomorrow or whatever. Might have a few of my voice clips in it. It's gold, but I won't say what it's about, except for it's on a very popular YouTube channel, and it's interesting. So again, I've put my money where my mouth is, and I've realized who can walk the walk. So when you see my online presence and the way that I will approach other businesses or say something about a business, understand why. That is definitely my version of the truth, and I have results, receipts, everything because of that. Anyways, that was the somber part of this. Again, I'm incredibly impressed with how this has become a status symbol to be, hey, so-and-so tuned my car. And then that person ends up being this amazing communicator to help others along their path. And that's what I've really tried to do, is keep paying it forward. Really proud of you guys. And I loved seeing through, each other's eyes, the growth of what's happening. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Let me know if you like the new lighting setup. I think it was a little bit bright, but definitely a lot better than that last video. That was pretty bad. So, all right, y'all. Catch you in the next one. Cheers.